Hello and welcome to the narrated version of building my 77 lava table. So obviously I started with a plank of oak, started to flatten that out and then used my planing jig with a router to speed things up a bit. You can find a video on that elsewhere on the channel, and in fact I hope to be making some videos of some of the other jigs I used on this project, so watch out for those. Now using a straight edge down the centre of a board, because I'm going to be splitting it and putting the live edge in the middle. I'm using some double-sided tape here to attach a straight edge, which is wider than the edge of the board, as you can see, so I can then run it through the saw to get a nice straight cut. You may also notice there I put an extension table on the back of this small table from Evolution. Smaller sections from the leg are freehand cut and very easily planed straight. And then we need to angle for the joint, which is a little less than 45 degrees, so not easy to do straight off the table with the blade because it won't tilt enough. So I made myself a little jig, and then I'm cutting the legs in half because they have a joint in them as well. So we've got an angle joint at the top meeting the top of the table, and we've got an angle joint halfway down the legs. So using the jig again, putting an angle on the ends of those. I'm just setting up here for where the legs, the end of the plank was wider than the centre, so I want to make the table a little bit narrower than that, so I'm cutting off some of the live edge on the bottom of the legs, which would have just splayed it out too much. Now to join the live edges together, I'm going to be using some copper tubing, so I need to drill some holes for that through the live edge. So I've got a nice sturdy fence on the back here, keeping the boards nice and vertical, and then with the drill press and the forcing a bit, I can drill those holes in. Now I'm using a domino machine here to join the legs for both the joints, the top joint and the knee joint. You could equally use some long dowels or some loose tenons. A little sanding. I did most of the smoothing with a draw knife, but a little bit of sanding here gets it looking nice. And I'm just cutting the copper pipe now to join the two sides together. And you'll see I've put a protective guard over the blade there. And it's just an example of how the top of the legs goes together with the copper pipe in there, and you can see the holes for the dominoes at the knee joint. Now I took some time wondering what I was going to actually colour this with. I thought about actually using a dye or stain. And I thought, well, let's actually burn the colour in. I did this perhaps 20 years ago on something else I made. I haven't done it since, so this was trying it again, and it worked a lot better this time actually. Now also the copper pipe is really quite boring when it comes from the plumbing merchant, so I wanted to change that a little bit. I'm using some oil, a bit of WD-40 and a bit of 3-in-1 oil, heating the pipe up and applying that to it, and actually made it really nice. Got some lovely colours on it. I hope you'll agree that looks better than plain old copper pipe. Now I'm gluing the legs together with the copper pipes here. I've used some construction adhesive to glue those in. And now to actually fill in the gap at the top of the table so it's a little bit more useful, things won't fall through. I'm using some coloured acrylic, scribing the edges. And actually I didn't video at the stage of actually running a router along just to give myself a little groove, little rebate for this top to sit in, unfortunately. But I've scribed that now, I'm just cutting it with a jigsaw and cleaning all the edges with sandpaper and then polishing with some autosol. Now I've since been told of a technique where you can just use a flame to clean the edges up. I'll try and show that in another video. And there's the finished table. I really like it. I know some of you have said you like it, others have said they're not quite sure, but hey, that's it. Thanks for listening. Cheerio.